Restless Dead asks, can we help with alpha or beta testing new things like the initiative tracker? If so, how? Excellent question. And the answer is yes. So we are going to be going to alpha with, in particular, the combat tracker relatively soon. And anyone who is a subscriber of any sort, any tier of subscription, you will be able to help us alpha test that. When we move to beta, it will be available for the public to test. But yes, we will allow any of our subscribers to help us alpha test really any feature that we're moving forward with, major features. We intend to first go to alpha, let our subscribers give us some feedback, and then move on from there. Aaron Lore, what announced upcoming features slash beta slash alpha are you most excited about? That one's tough because we've got several things that are just on the cusp. I like that word, on the cusp of delivery. And so, very excited about digital dice. But that's maybe because I've seen too much. I've really seen too much. So very excited about that one. Combat Tracker is going to be outstanding as well. And there might even be things that you don't quite know about yet that I'm very excited about. But yeah, those two things are definitely standing out big time for me. I've already expressed my excitement about the mobile app that's player focused. So again, lots and lots of really cool things are just again on the cusp, and looking forward to getting those out into everyone's hands. Button Pusher TV, with upcoming iOS app, are there plans to support Siri shortcuts? I'd love to say, hey Siri, cast Fireball and have it roll all the rolls, please. I am not very familiar with Siri. I talk to Google Lady most of the time. I'm sure she has an actual name out there, but I'm not exactly sure what that is. I would say that that is something that seems very intriguing and something that we would probably want to support at least over time. So we'll have to see how that part goes. But that kind of integration is something that we would absolutely want to take a real hard look at. Gunnar Fish, are you excited for Gary Con? It'll be my first. That's going to be a lot of fun for you then. Yes, I'm very excited for Gary Con. I hope that it snows because that's one of the only places I get to see snow typically. But I do hope that it snows, and very excited for Gary Con. If any of you are going to be there, be sure to say hello. I love going to Wisconsin. And so, food's great. Looking forward to that trip for sure. Archeantis 7. If a warlock acquires the Eldritch Blast cantrip via a feat, is Eldritch Blast considered a warlock spell? I ask because my daughter's warlock did this, and the cantrip is not benefiting from the +1 attack granted by the Rod of the Pact Keeper in DDB. That is an excellent question that I am actually not going to try to provide a definitive answer for. I imagine Jeremy Crawford has answered this somewhere, and my gut tells me that I have seen that and that it would be if you are a warlock and you gain that feat, it should be considered a warlock spell. Someone in chat is probably scouring the internet right now to find exactly what Jeremy has said about it. So, we'll try to share that. And then, if it's not working properly in DDB, we'll certainly add it to the list, and we'll try to see if we can make an update there to make that work with the Rod of the Pack Keeper. Abatog. Can there be a digital art book which contains all the artwork unlocked via D&D Beyond? Maybe with a jump off point to the book page the art is from. As it is now, searching for cool artwork is nigh impossible. This is something that is absolutely on our list, something that we want to do, something that is not something that we're able to work on yet, but it is something that we plan to do, and I imagine we will see it at some point in the future. Probably not this year, but possibly next year. Dark Abyss Keeper, how do you prefer to deal with small parties, NPCs, sidekicks, rotating cast of DMPCs, aggressive scaling? Let me reread this one real quick. How do you prefer to deal with small parties? Are you asking me in my own games? I'm going to make that assumption that that's what you're asking. And the way that I deal with that most of the time is I offload that work to other people that are not me. And so I learned a long time ago that Dungeons and Dragons is interactive storytelling. And so that means that the dungeon master does not corner the market on facilitating the game in my mind. And so I try to leverage players as much as I possibly can to get them to help me keep track of initiative, which that's going to go away before too much longer with our combat tracker. Nobody's going to have to track it. But then I get them to run NPCs or at least roll for NPCs and that sort of thing. So the way that I manage that is by making sure that my plate never gets too full and that I am still allowed to focus on entertaining the players at the table, which is right there on the back of that Dungeon Master's Guide and the part of the game that I take the most seriously. I hope that answers the question. If you were asking something else, by all means, try to clarify. And I'll try to answer it again. Osin DeBard, how do you turn on dark mode? Well, that's an Easter egg, and I hope that you all can figure that one out. And right now, it is just dark mode for the encounter builder, but I hope that it does indicate out there that as much as I want to roll my eyes at it, I understand that there is a major demand for dark mode, and we are at least taking some steps to start to try to figure it out. Jesus 781. Any plans to build in rules for characters becoming vampires or were-beings? We would see that happen as we start to get into the monster builder that is on our roadmap and that we want to get to one of these days. But templated type creatures would certainly be a part of that. Luigi Green 84. How many people do you tend to assign to a specific task? For example, the encounter tracker or a new book. Okay, let me think about how to. I don't mind answering that question, but I need to think about how to qualify it because there are lots and lots of people that touch this from a process standpoint, like start to end. And so basically we have teams that are roughly 6 to 8 people on the teams. These are development teams. They're going to have a product manager, they're going to have back end engineers, they're going to have front end engineers, they're going to have a designer, they're going to have ideally a QA engineer. And so ultimately those teams are going to typically so one of those teams right now is working on the combat tracker, for instance. A new book is a little bit different than that. We have a development team that is in charge of a lot of the actual releasing of that book, but we have another team that is called our content management team that is composed of 3 individuals who are going to be the ones that are doing the data entry, that are tool tipping, that are using our automation tools, that are digitizing the content. So they have a very big lift for each of these books. And so they're doing all of that work. But then, we have individuals that are working on our mobile app that are affected by new books. So new books are very big deals. If there are new rules in books, then virtually all the teams are affected in some way, and they have to make adjustments as we're able to with our bandwidth. So yeah, books in a lot of ways are most hands on deck, whereas something like a feature like the encounter tracker is typically uh, handled and managed by one of those single development teams. Devere P, can I share content in a campaign I didn't create and I'm not DMing? You should be able to, yes. If that's not working for you, please let us know. Chip Ahoy, will it be possible to play games, for example, like in Roll20? So if you're referring to a virtual tabletop, we certainly have targeted on our roadmap a something we're calling a virtual game space VGS that is going to be what we hope to be a next generation version of the current virtual tabletops that are in the market today. That is on our long term roadmap. So eventually, yes. Mithrandir 12508. Can we get a way to filter things out in spells, monsters, and items as well as in? So to filter out instead of in, it's definitely something we can look at. We don't get that request very often, so um, we haven't seen a ton of demand for that. But if that is something that you'd like to see, continue to let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Leper Gnome Guild. Excited about the combat tracker when it launches. What will players see, if anything, during a session when their DM is using it? At the start, players will not. Uh, at the start, players are likely not to see anything. Like, and when I say start, that is like immediately into alpha. They probably won't see anything. But as we go along, the idea is that players will see the turn order, the initiative order, and then from there it will be customizable as to how much information players see. So Dungeon Master should be able to restrict, statistics or anything else like that, hit points from monsters, that sort of thing. We'll likely have preferences that are, show player character health, show monster health. So, you can uncheck the monster health and then show the player health if you play in a game where your dungeon master allows the cleric to know how many hit points a player character has as well. So it will have some toggles to determine what kind of information is being actually revealed in that. So yeah, that's likely how that's going to shake out, but it's not going to happen, on immediate alpha release. But connectivity is a big part about what we want to do. We eventually want a dungeon master to be able to prompt a roll for initiative button that will then prompt players on their character sheet to roll for initiative, and then that will automatically be taken into account in the combat tracker. And at that point in time, you should be able to roll a digital die for that initiative total, or you can roll a physical dice and then input your total on your character sheet, and then that will be sent to the combat tracker. So all of that is definitely part of the grand plan. Jax the Bard or Jaxay the Bard, are you coming to Fan Expo still? Fan Expo. I'm sorry, I I may not know exactly which Fan Expo you're talking about, because I think there are about two that are called Fan Expo this year that we're looking at. So if you can try to clarify for me or hit me up on Twitter, I can definitely answer that question for you. There's one in Huntsville, for instance, it's called Fan Expo that I think we're going to, but I don't know if you're talking about that one or not. Shenanigans 95, one of my favorite words, shenanigans. Will we be able to add 1 decimal point in the case of initiative ties? We've yet to determine exactly how that will work, but you will be able to drag or reorder anyone who has the same initiative score. So either way, it should be an easy process. Monkey Mama, I get Twitch Prime sub through Amazon Prime. Would I be able to participate in the alpha? No, we are specifically talking about D&D Beyond subscriptions, either a hero tier subscription or a master tier subscription through D&D Beyond. That will get you access to alphas going forward. One crit botch. What is the last book you have read for pleasure? Interesting. What would it have been? Um, so what it's kind of like, what do we define as pleasure? I am afraid that if I answer this question, that it could potentially be taken in some weird NDA context. So I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on this one actually a little bit, because I have been reading a lot of things for pleasure lately, but it is all of them have been in worlds that we are looking forward to exploring in some other parts of our business. So if I completely back up from any and all of that, I would say that last book that I read is, I actually did read The Count of Monte Cristo, but that's been months ago at this point, because so much of my reading in between now and then has been a lot of research that's pleasurable for me for some other things that we're working on. But I would say the thing that I can share, The Count of Monte Cristo, I read because I read at least big parts of that when I was much younger, but I am a huge fan of the Jim Caviezel, Guy Pearce movie. I actually had a young Henry Cavill in it as well. But love, love, love that movie. Love that entire just setting that everything's in. And so I wanted to read the original text as I was older, where I could, probably make a lot more sense of some of the nuances. So yeah, I read that one. Everything after that, I'm gonna have to keep low key. I apologize, but yeah, that's it. Kodiak the Bear King. Nice. Will we ever get a chance to buy a D&D Beyond jersey like you've worn in the past? And will we see Dragonlance shirts added to the Hot Topic D&D line? I cannot answer that last question at all. I would love to see Dragonlance shirts added, but Wizards of the Coast is going to have to answer that one. But as far as the jerseys go for D&D Beyond, those are definitely for staff at this point only. But and we do not have a license that we can sell merchandise. If we did, we would have already been doing this a long time ago. So I'm hopeful that we can clear a path for that at some point in the future, but we have not been able to do so to this point. So it is not likely anytime soon that you're going to see those. Osin DeBard, is there a plan in the works to allow artificers to share infused equipment? A party's artificer infused the paladin's armor. Looking for the best way to track that. I think there are going to be some creative solutions out there in the community. Someone in chat may even be able to give you some good ideas there. But the idea is that as that happens, we would typically want to customize the receiving player's character sheet. So if that's adding a resistance to the armor, for instance, they would simply go to their resistances area and add that in the defenses area. So it's not an ideal solution. Everything is workarounds at this point, and we would love to do something more formal in the future that makes that easier, but we have not been able to get to that yet. DM Anvil, could you surface the feature request page so that it's more easily accessible? Maybe it could have a button next to the change log. Yeah, that's a decent idea for sure. And if you happen to not know how to get to that, I'm sure that it can be pasted in chat. pretty easily here, but it is dndbeyond.com/feature dash requests. You can certainly get there, but yeah, it makes some sense to put alongside some of those other easy access buttons, and so we'll look into that. Last leaf of autumn. I don't know why that username has a melancholy to it. Adventures specifically for evil characters win. Unfortunately, going to have to defer to Wizards of the Coast for that. I personally think that's a great idea. Probably not an incredibly commercially viable idea, but this sounds like a wonderful opportunity for someone to make a name for themselves on the DMs Guild. Odrelix. We know that eventually homebrew classes are a planned feature. Any update on that? No update at this point in time. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get back around to homebrew yet, but once we do, classes are certainly on tap. Mithrandir 12508, Triss or Yennefer. Oh, wow. Why not both? All right, let's move along. Artemis Themp. Will we ever have a Minotaur or Kalishtar character picture? That does sound like something we should rectify. And so I am going to right this second go. And if he is not watching already, um, Minotaur and Kalish Tar portraits are needed to our content management manager, Elliot, and we'll see what we can do there. Nielsen MC, can we get tooltips for sidekicks enabled? Currently, items such as spells are listed but lack the details. Players then have to search the spell to know how the spell works. I might need to know where you're talking about. Um, but from there, we should be able to do that unless it's a section where tooltips are not currently hooked up. And so if you're talking about from a monster page or something like that, they should be in there. And if they're not, we can certainly take a look at that. Artemis Themp, will the pre-order stuff from example Eberron ever become available to users who weren't around for the release? Yes, they should become available at some point in the future, but we don't have any details on how yet. We have details. We don't have anything we're ready to share yet. Ballantyne 9K. Is there an easy way for a DM to add characters as unassigned to the campaign? I would like NPCs to factor into the encounter tracker. So that is something that we're certainly looking into, how to flag characters that are in the campaign as either non-player characters or player characters, and some organization around that. That actually, I've seen that pop up on our short list. So hopefully we're going to start looking at that sooner rather than later. Emote. Are there any plans for pronunciation buttons on sub races, particularly the elves? That's something that we probably could look into. Pronunciation is certainly a production every time we try to do it, and we've tried to do the best that we can with monsters in the monster manual, monsters in Volo's Guide to Monsters, and then Mordenkainen's. Oh wow, Mordenkainen. I keep wanting to say Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, but that's not it at all. Um, I think that we finally hit a critical mass where Adam cannot remember all of the books that have actually come out. So that is a lot of books out there. Tome of Foes is what that one's called. I keep getting it mixed up because now there are like 10 DMs Guild products that are relatively popular too that have Mordenkainen in the name. But yes, so we definitely can look into some pronunciation for other parts of the site, but it definitely has some production time involved in that. Far Strider 2099. Is there a way to assign feats to a character other than as an alternative to an ability score improvement? Yes. And let me show you this one because it's definitely very specific. So if we go into characters, we will let's just go into Briv Steel Marrow here. He was at the top of my list because I played him most recently. So with Briv, oh yeah, while I'm here, we'll just do this real quick. Oh, that was a bad roll. That it's because it was with my hand axe. I was throwing my hand axe. Let's do something better. Well, that's a terrible roll. I'm not gonna end on that. Oh my goodness. These digital dice are broken. I want a refund. Well, that's a little bit better. I probably hit with that at least. All right. So there we go. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I rolled a 1 before I rolled a 20. Do you ever just play that game with yourself? Like keep rolling the die until you roll either a 1 or a 20? So I lost, oh my goodness, 2 ones. What is happening? This has got to be the old code. This is the old code, by the way, but that shouldn't impact the randomness of it. 19, that's a little bit better. I'm going to roll my damage now. Let's see what we got. Some blue dice for that. But yeah, old code. We got some new stuff coming. But while we're here, I forgot what the question actually was. No, I didn't. So we're going to go to features and traits on the sheet. And if you go to the feats section, you can go to manage feats. And this is actually where you can add any feat that you would like to, even outside of progression to your character. And so this is the place you would do that. So you can add anything that you need to here. I do believe that, let's just verify that I'm saying this right, that we do have preferences that, let's see, no preferences here. Oh yeah. So there are prerequisite preferences. So I have these off for feats right now. So you might need to turn those off in order to see all of the feats. But that is how you would go through and do that. Greg and then some. Any chance in the future that we could disable the comment section on pages in D&D Beyond? I play with kids, and sometimes the comments are inappropriate or overly negative. So first of all, if a comment is inappropriate, please by all means report that, and our moderators, will take care of that. I understand the overly negative part of that as not necessarily being inappropriate, but necessarily being part of the internet age of recreational outrage. So I definitely understand that part of that. I think that disabling comments on a per user basis definitely would have some complexity to it. It's something that could be done. So we'll certainly keep it in mind, and especially if there are others out there that would like to see that, if this is important to you, then let us know, because the more that we hear a request, the higher the priority is likely to become. Jury rigor. Is there consideration for implementing a subscription to gain access to the content from the books as opposed to just getting further access to the tools of DDB? So no, there are no current plans for this. This is something that we actually would love to do on our side. It is something that Wizards of the Coast has elected with this edition to not do. And not just trying to blame it on them or anything. They have reasons. I think that they're very legitimate reasons, but it's just not something that is going to be explored, as far as I'm aware. With the current edition of the game. So no, it's unlikely to happen, and it's definitely not something that we're talking about. Adernus, how do you decide in what order to fix bugs and add requested features? It's a very complicated process, so I'm not going to be able to get into all of that in the short time that we have here today. But it's just going to be a variety of factors. There are many um, knobs that we turn in order to make these decisions. So, one of those is demand and the perceived demand that we have for something. One of the knobs is absolutely complexity of the solution. So you hear the term low hanging fruit. If something is relatively easy to do and it has demand, or it also has any of the other factors I'll mention in a second, then it's pretty likely that will get prioritized because we get value out of it quickly because the complexity is relatively low. And so again, complexity plays into that. I would also say that we do have to make sure that we are making money, and so there is some element of business value that has to be considered with this, because if we weren't making money, we wouldn't be able to continue to support our platform and be able to deliver what the community ultimately needs. And so that is a consideration. I can tell you that as a company, we have posted everywhere inside our walls, and it is part of our just DNA that we are very community first. We understand that doing for the community most of the time ends up meaning financial value for the company. So I don't want anyone to come away thinking that that is the primary knob that we have to turn. But again, transparently, it is one that we have to consider. And then also just the concept of, especially when it comes to fixes for bugs or possibly rules that we're not conveniently or elegantly solving yet, is there a workaround? Is there a viable workaround? So that's another factor that goes into that decision. So for instance, with the question earlier about artificer infusions and being able to conveniently and easily create one of those as an artificer and then hand that to another player in your group, that absolutely would be incredible. It would be a wonderful thing for our tool to do, and we want to do that, and we want to get there. But at this point in time, with our focus in so many other places, we're not able to provide that functionality yet. But in the meantime, there is a reasonably viable workaround that is still digitally trackable, right? And so that is one of the reasons that we're not going to prioritize that over brand new types of functionality like initiative tracking or combat tracking. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea about how we do this. It's not, I would say it's definitely more art than it is science, and it is something that we take very seriously and do the best that we can to make sure that we're working on whatever is most important at any given time. Got time for a couple more questions, maybe. I feel like I'm losing my voice too, so I apologize about that. Doing a lot of talking this week for some reason. Ballantine 9K. Will the dice be scannable with the K there in the word scannable? I'm going to go ahead and think that that was a typo and you meant skinnable. I am colorblind and can't see the numbers on the dice demo. So you're saying that on the um, you're talking about what I just showed on my screen, that you're not able to see the numbers. So for one thing, yes, dice will eventually be skinnable. We're very, very excited about how that's going to shake out. But ultimately, with the dice being skinnable, uh, one of the things that's going to happen there is there are going to be times where people are going to want to choose skins that are just kind of unreadable in general. And so, if that's the case and that's the kind of skin that you're using, you might not even be able to see that number anyway. But that is the beauty of digital dice is you don't have to read the number on the die itself. You can read the number in the output display that we are going to place, on the sheet itself. And over time you'll have a history of all your rolls and all of that. So ultimately, you should be able to see what you rolled quickly and easily at a glance, even if you're using skins that are maybe not as conducive to being able to see the number. For instance, I have some set of runic dice or something like that that somebody gave me that I think look abundantly cool. They're really, really cool. But I had to stop using them because I do not have a clue what number it is, half the time when I roll the dice. And so in the digital world, we can assist and prop that up, and you can still have your really abundantly cool looking die that you don't even have to worry about reading because digital will tell you what it rolled. One more question. Zikzu, you're the best guys. Yeah, it is not a question, but you need to know that. I genuinely appreciate the sentiment, and I appreciate everyone for joining us today. Thank you very much for spending time with me. Lots and lots of exciting things where the other shoe is about to fall. And so lots more in the coming weeks. Really looking forward to getting into all of that. We do have a musical coming up. And it's gonna be my chance. Like, I may not be doing this much longer. I may just go live a life on Broadway and just know that I'll be happy either way. All right. Because it's a wonderful world out there. And I ask that all of you go out this week into it and make it a better place. Don't make it worse. Let's all make it a better place. Thanks very much for your time today. Later, Gators.